Hey folks, I'm Sarah and I'm on the 2025 jury for what I think is the best book prize for literary fiction from small presses. It's called the Republic of Consciousness Prize, United States and Canada, and it is dedicated to literary fiction from small presses in North America. Over the next few months, I will be sharing every single book nominated for the prize, and while I can't share my personal opinions on each book just yet, I will share enough details so that you can get to know the book and the publisher. Every book gets its very own video, and you are not going to want to miss a single one. Next up is book number 44, second to last on my list of 45 nominees for the prize. This is Seeing You Home, Stories by Katherine Hunter, published by Signature Editions. These are short stories. They're described as interconnected short stories, and they indeed all follow one couple, Richard and Claire, and all of the stories deal in some way with Richard's battle with cancer, his eventual death, and Claire's grieving process as a result. But each story tackles a different period in their relationship. They're not in chronological order. So you start out, Richard is in the hospital and his phone seems to have been stolen. It's a story about his phone, which has been stolen, and Claire desperately is trying to track it down using its signal, like the Find My Phone app, using the signal to run around the city to look for his phone. But then you go backwards and you see Claire's first marriage, and then that leading up to when they kind of re-met, because she had known Richard previously, kind of re-meet each other and fall in love, and so you see that. And then you go forward to after Richard's death. But every single one of these stories is really about grief and the grieving process, because even though some of the stories happen in the early days of their relationship, they're all told from a point in the future when Richard has passed away. So really, every story, no matter where it happens in their marriage, is about grieving. It's about memory. It's about living with cancer, dealing with cancer, caregiving for a loved one. It sounds very sad, and of course it is, but it's also very beautifully told, and the descriptions of the places that they go, like they vacation on a lake. It's just these beautiful descriptions, and the relationships she has with her friends and neighbors are all beautifully told as well. So there's a lot of lightness and even a good amount of humor in these stories. Katherine Hunter is also an editor and an award-winning poet, and she's published mysteries as well in addition to literary fiction, and she recently retired from 30 years of teaching English and creative writing at the University of Winnipeg. Signature Editions is a literary publishing house committed to, as they say on their website, preserving our distinctive Canadian identity through the publication of Canadian writing of literary merit. Begun in 1986 as a collective at Concordia University under the name Nuage Editions, in 1997 the press relocated to Winnipeg, and in 2001 changed its name to Signature Editions. It publishes on average 7 to 10 titles a year, and they say, "We are unabashedly literary and are proud to say that our eclectic list of quality books continues to garner regional, national, and international literary awards." Again, these are described as interconnected short stories. When I think of interconnected stories, like something described as a book of interconnected stories, I think of something a little more loosely connected than I found these to be. So like stories that maybe feature characters who all live in the same small town or something like that. These felt a lot more connected than that. So more interconnected even. So that perhaps almost like a novel in stories, maybe not quite a novel in stories, but like closer to that, because they all feature the same narrator. They're all featuring the same subject, which is Claire's marriage from meeting her husband to his death and its aftermath. And they all, for the most part, have a similar tone and style and structure. So I'd love to hear from you. What books of interconnected short stories have you read? And I'd love to hear if you can provide in your examples, like the ways that the stories are interconnected. I love thinking about that. But then I also want to ask what you think might be the appeal of writing interconnected stories instead of some other genre or form of fiction. And I think in this case, since it features the same protagonist in all these stories, the same subject matter across all the stories, I think that writing this as stories instead of as like a novel of their marriage mirrors the fragmented and disorienting nature of Claire's grief and grieving process. And in fact, Claire herself experiences grief in a lot of ways in like lapses of memory. Like she will kind of lose periods of time and not know what she had been doing, or she will forget to turn the faucet off. Things like that, where she's disoriented and it's very fragmented. So I think breaking the book into stories instead of writing a novel with a start and a finish, again, mirrors that experience of grief. It's not linear, it's not straightforward, it's a broken process, and it has to be to get through it. On the flip side, you could, if you wanted to write about grief, you could also choose to write a bunch of short stories about different people who are going through some sort of grieving process. Or if you want to write about illness, you could write several stories featuring different people, different places, but all collected into one book. But again, I think by using the same marriage, the same two characters in this book, you're really plunged into the all-consuming nature of Claire's experience of grief. She doesn't get to escape her grief and hop over to somebody else's story, so we don't get to either. We're right there with her through it. So of course, this just makes me realize there have to be all sorts of really cool reasons why an author would choose the form of interconnected stories to cover a particular situation, set of characters, theme, whatever it is. So I'd love to hear the examples of books that you've read that are interconnected stories, or novels in stories, why you think the author chose to use that form. Let me know your examples in the comments, and this is my example for you. And that's just one of many incredible books nominated by one of many incredible publishers. The long list of 10 books is usually announced in mid-January-ish, but I guarantee you there are going to be more than 10 amazing books from these nominees. So if you love offbeat, under-the-radar literary fiction, you are going to want to follow along. Click above or below for the next nominated book. If I've filmed it, it'll be available there. If not, stay tuned for just a little while longer. And in the meantime, you can click the playlist below that will contain all of the nominated books that I've shared so far. Again, my name is Sarah. Thank you so much for joining me here. I'll talk to you next time. Bye.